came about really, or possibly even all of the work and its concern with this relationship with the conscious and the unconscious has been provoked, I think, from my experiences as a child growing up inside a family where someone had mental illness, my older sibling, and so at the age of 12 I was confronted with the fact that there was someone experiencing reality in a really extremely different way, and having to place that for myself and accept that her reality was as valid as mine, that the life that she was leading had purpose of its own, and that there was no point in value judging it. This was her whole life and this was my life. And so that was very, very confronting to start to sort that out. And so that's really, in a sense, how Madeleine has finally come about. Even though it's not directly autobiographical, it is actually tracking the experience of what it is to have a family. Like, it's not actually my family. My family was different to that. And to a certain extent, my sister obviously was different too, but that's actually the dynamics are there. It felt important to me to make mental illness more accessible or less strange, because the difficulty is knowing what's going on inside a mentally ill person, that they become fairly scary. They are other, and I wanted to break down that barrier a little and make the inner world of people who are living with mental illness something which was more understandable, and that we might look at that and experience some sort of similarity, like understand that they, like us, are also engaged in a process of ordering, of working, like they work at making sense of their world, they work at understanding reality, and they, like us, are in a sense pushing back chaos. They probably have less success, you know, and sometimes we have too much success, like we overorder our world and cut off, you know, energy and access to something other. I was really concerned with that, in a way to make it something that is more available, more understandable, and so that an audience could empathise with it more. Not to romanticise it, not to make it look simple, and the women within these plays are not necessarily successful. Like they do not necessarily kind of easily survive without a great deal of struggle. Accuracy comes up if you're representing something dramatically, and I have done an enormous amount of research, like both by living alongside mental illness but also by reading. And what I have discovered is that just as there are an enormous, there is an enormous range in human nature and character types, inside mental illness, let's say you take something like schizophrenia, the way that individually manifests for particular people varies a lot. And people's psychosis is centred around different things. There are particular themes that run through religion and paranoia. There are things that come up, but it comes down to something very as particular and personal as an actual individual is. And so it is hard really to judge that, because one person's experience is actually different to another. So someone might come, a number of people came and deeply empathised with each of my plays and felt very like it was really, really accurate. And then there'd be someone who'd go, well, no, that's not accurate, you know. And so and that would be the case with an ordinary play with abuse or with crime, that there would be that variety. And so, and there is also the clinical side of it, and the clinical argument about which I tried to spread through the family in Madeleine. Like, everyone had a different idea about how to treat her. You know, do we enable her to have her world? Do we intervene and medicate her? Do we hospitalise her? Like, what do we do? And so the solution to that varies also, and people have different opinions about what should happen to the mentally ill. Like all that time ago with R.D. Laing and mental illness, and whether it should be therapy or medication. So those things are brought up in both of my plays so far too. I mean, writing about the mentally ill is not writing about it metaphorically. I'm really writing about actually dealing with mental illness. However, inside that, there are parallels to the way we struggle with reality, you know, the so-called sane struggle. And the kinds of things that get highlighted in the plays are the fact that someone's actually got a task to do in life that is so enormous that they are overwhelmed by that task. So there is that for the mentally ill as well. There is also the fact that the structures that exist in society are not appropriate to the task that has to be done, or not available to the task that has to be actually done. So, you know, there are some feminist resonances here in that respect. And also that the kind of work that the mentally ill do could be remain invisible. Like, you look at someone and you don't actually know what's going on inside them. You don't know what's enormous task they're dealing with. And so I remember Andrew Denton sort of put on some headphones with voices in it and went to a social event as an experiment. I think it was Andrew Denton. And the voices were yelling at him the whole time that he was trying to deal with the event. And he was saying how incredibly difficult that was, because there's two realities going on at the same time. But to a certain extent, this is a very, very heightened form of what we are experiencing all the time, because I have my inner reality that's, as Margaret said before, that's kind of a certain shape, and it's having to deal with the reality that's out here, which is actually a different shape. And so even though my intention is not that, my intention is that we're looking at someone who is dealing with their own reality. And so I think those resonances do exist with the so-called, you know, a normal struggle.